Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Tesla app updates has decompiled a future Tesla software update, and there are some interesting findings. It looks like there will be a Tesla Diner button now in the UI, so this site may be opening soon-ish. Not only that, but there will be a whole UI interface for when you're at the Tesla Diner to order food and perform other services right from the Tesla app. For Tesla insurance, the safety score may be getting an update, so if you're using that, there could be the possibility for more discounts in the future. If you're getting roadside assistance from Tesla, in the app there may be a new live widget with updates. In the code, they found has automatic tonneau, so the speculation is the cheaper rear-wheel drive Cybertruck may be getting a manual tonneau cover. Android users may be getting ultra-wideband support, and they're also guessing the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck will not come standard with AC outlets. And finally, the charging filter will now be 0 to 72 kilowatts and then 72 all the way up to 325. There is a significant battery fire at the Moss Landing battery storage facility in California. However, there are two separate parts of this facility. One is Vistra Energy, and they do not use Tesla Megapacks. They actually use batteries from LG, and those are the ones on fire. To be clear, this fire has nothing to do with Tesla or their Megapacks.
Well, there's no way to sugarcoat it. This is, it's just a disaster is what it is, and it's extremely disconcerting. The fire is contained. I think people should be able to realize that. We don't believe there's any real threat of it extending outward and getting beyond where it's in, but it's inside a concrete building. There are a lot of batteries in there, and it's burning pretty much uncontrolled inside that facility.
There are some evacuation orders and highway closures, but the main reason is for air quality. Naturally, this story will get a lot of attention because it is the biggest battery storage facility in the United States and one of the biggest in the world. The portion of Moss Landing that's operated by Vistra Energy that uses those LG batteries is actually a 3 gigawatt hour project. Then the other portion that's operated by PG&E that does use Tesla Megapacks is just under 1 gigawatt hour. Of course, there are some headlines out there saying things like Tesla battery fire at the Moss Landing power plant, and in response, Elon is understandably fed up here, saying to reiterate, the legacy news headlines are false. This fire has nothing to do with Tesla, and our Megapacks are operating well. In these situations, I think it's always helpful to know the cause of the fire, and so far, as far as I can tell, it has not yet been determined. Back in 2022, one single Tesla Megapack did have a fire issue at the Moss Landing location, but the word was that was caused thanks to a sprinkler head malfunction that caused some overheating. And at the time, the built-in safety systems worked as designed, automatically disconnecting the Tesla batteries from the grid when the fire was detected. With serendipitous timing, Bloomberg today also put out an in-depth article highlighting all of the benefits of these battery storage systems. A few notes: one executive from the California grid says it would have been extremely difficult to have gotten through some of these events without the battery fleet. Global prices for large-scale energy storage systems have dropped 73% since 2017. They talked about how many of these projects can be up and running in a year, if of course they can get connected to the grid efficiently. And the COO of ERCOT in Texas for their grid said without the batteries, we would have been in some pretty bad situations there, specifically talking about the Texas summer heat. So far on this channel, we've mostly talked about lithium-ion batteries for storage, but there are some zinc-based batteries that can last for up to 16 hours set to hit the market, as well as some iron-air batteries that can discharge for 100 hours straight. The latter is from Form Energy. They just raised over $1 billion, opened a factory near Pittsburgh, and utilities in Colorado and Georgia have already signed contracts for installations, with the first scheduled this year. On the topic, Colbún, a Chilean utility company, has begun construction of a 228 megawatt or just under 1 gigawatt hour battery storage project in Chile. This is set to be a $260 million project for Tesla, and the expectation expectation is it'll be up and running mid-2026. We got some more official data for Norway car sales for 2024. 88.9% were fully electric. And further, if you include plug-ins and hybrids, that number jumps up to 96.9% of all new car sales were electrified. As you can see, the Model Y and the Model 3 were the two best-selling vehicles in the country for the year, and if you total up all Tesla sales for 2024, it made up 18.9% of all new passenger cars sold. However, for some context, in 2023, Tesla's total market share was actually 20%. The Biden administration has been busy as they're on their way out, as they finalized a new rule this week that will prohibit imports of certain Chinese software and hardware. This move effectively bans passenger cars coming from China. The truth is, there aren't many of those here anyway, but certain automakers will definitely have to find new suppliers for certain components on the hardware side. But here's what our Commerce Secretary said. Cars today aren't just on wheels, they're computers. They have cameras, microphones, GPS tracking, and other tech that are connected to the internet. Through this rule, the Commerce Department is taking a necessary step to safeguard U.S. national security and protect Americans' privacy by keeping foreign adversaries from manipulating these technologies. In my opinion, this is the ultimate facade, and really, when you see through that facade, it becomes the height of hypocrisy. So our government can be all up in arms about China maybe doing something nefarious with consumers' data, but in reality, we have the FTC actually taking action against GM for illegally selling their consumers' data without their consent. We'll touch on that more next week, but my point here is, what about all of the big tech companies here in America that are already spying on American consumers, and yet the government doesn't really seem that concerned about any of those companies? The way I see it, this is obviously just protectionism and a means to try to protect legacy auto here in America from having to compete with these Chinese automakers. This rule goes into effect in the middle of March this year. The software prohibitions under the rule begin for 2027 models, and the hardware prohibitions take effect for 2030 models. It's too early to have an exhaustive list of what companies will be impacted, but I do know that Polestar is already moving some production away from China. On the Cybertruck, Mrs. Dirty Tesla shared that on their way home from Jacksonville, they did not use the tarp in the back of their Cybertruck, and some of their belongings got wet. She said, "We hit some very heavy rain in the Jacksonville area on our drive." As far as I can tell, it seems like this problem is very specific. It does not apply to all Cybertruck vehicles, but certain ones are indeed having some water issues in the vault. And real quick, on the Cybertruck, from my commentary yesterday, I want to make it very clear, in no way am I trying to articulate that the Cybertruck is some failure or destined to be one. The only point I've been trying to make the past few weeks, if you've been following along, is that there have been multiple signs out there that demand may be a bit lower than Tesla was expecting at this point. And sure, 2024 was a very solid year for Cybertruck sales, best-selling EV pickup in the US. I'm more focused, however, on 2025. So we'll see in the next 2 quarters if Tesla can make the jump from about 13 to 15,000 in a quarter up to 20,000 and above. This video was awesome. Stieg, an Electrified community member, shared a video of his 86-year-old mother using FSD for the first time.
I get so scared that somebody's going to bump into me. So this will do it for me, right?
Yep.
Know just exactly when to not hit a car.
Yep.
Because this is where the drivers honk at me all the time. So this is much better.
Okay.
Much safer than me. No,
This is-
if I don't drive somewhere several times, I'll never remember how to get there. This is so fun. You know why everybody doesn't want one. Ooh,
It's very
I
sensitive.
think I love this. This is like a dream.
Okay.
I'm not really having to pay, just make decisions or anything. Better chauffeur than my driving. My driving is very marginal.
At the end, FSD did end up parking successfully at the church on its own. I share this because my mother-in-law has been hinting that she may now want a Tesla, having experienced version 13 in my wife's Model Y when they're out shopping together. And hopefully this is the year the floodgates open on the one thing she said, "I don't know why everybody doesn't want this." And if you did not see it, somebody shared this video clip with Sawyer of FSD 13. No lead car, nothing else it really would have been stopping for, and waited long enough until the stop sign was retracted to go, well done. Back to the Biden administration staying busy, they actually opened up federal land for construction of large-scale data centers, and they're promising to cut red tape to make sure projects move ahead in a speedy fashion. The DoD and the DOE will be tasked with identifying at least 6 federal sites that can be leased to private sector companies to build gigawatt-scale AI data centers. And the developers selected to build on these sites will be required to bring online enough clean energy sources to meet the full electricity needs of the data centers. In turn, the government will employ the fastest form of review to permit the infrastructure. The director of the White House Economic Council said, "We simply cannot have a new China shock in AI." And something I agree with, Biden said, "We must not offshore AI as we once did with computer chips and other critical technologies." Paired with the export controls for the AI diffusion rules we talked about earlier this week, the trend right now is build it here and keep it here. And the cherry on top, do so with clean energy. In the Chinese UI for navigation, they just released some new feature options. For your route, you can now choose the fastest time, the least congestion, which might make the drive or ride a bit safer. You can prefer highways, still no option to avoid highways, or you can choose the lowest tolls. There was some conversation over on X about the Cybertruck cameras and specifically the rear camera actually needing a better self-cleaning option. Tesla AI said on a more serious note, a more comprehensive cleaning solution is being worked on. For what it's worth, that was replying to Chuck Cook, and he was talking about a more general solution for unsupervised, so this might be rolling out to all vehicles, not just the Cybertruck. But all of the questions are still valid. Is this hardware? Is it software? Will there be a retrofit? For now, we just don't know. SETI Park shared a new patent published by Tesla talking about a new method of manufacturing LFP cathodes. Drew Baglino came out of nowhere replying to Jordan at the Limiting Factors saying the patent describes a more scalable, lower capital investment and lower process cost means of making LFP than traditional precursor CSTR, which is continuous stirred tank reactors followed by RHKs, which are rotary hearth kilns. It's also flexible to a variety of iron and phosphate inputs. It would be prudent for the new LFP supply chains developing in the US and Europe to adopt this approach when localizing. Fully scaled can be lower cost than untariffed LFP from China. It's important to note fully scaled means this is likely years away to hit this cost price point. But that's still very encouraging because right now the tariffs on LFP cells from China coming into the US is set at 25%. So this new way of making LFP cells won't just be cheaper than cells coming from China because of the tariffs, they'll be cheaper from the cells from China without any tariffs. I found this study scaling up high energy cathode materials for EVs. The way LFP cathodes are made now, the traditional way that Drew was talking about, uses that CSTR system. In doing it that way, the growth of particles is uncontrollable and results in relatively large particles, which degrades battery safety and performance. Just think of the CSTR process as the step where you mix some of the raw materials in a slurry-like substance. And then of course the rotary hearth kilns are the part where you apply the heating treatment. Thus, it sounds like with this new patent, Tesla has better options than those traditional methods. As Drew said, the new method will be flexible for a variety of iron and phosphate inputs. And honestly, so far, that's been my biggest takeaway looking through the patent. This phrase, "in some embodiments," is found in the patent description 366 times. Simply put, with this new method, there seems to be a lot of flexibility, which could open up some supply chain efficiencies. And it's pretty clear that these stars are aligning for Tesla to begin working on their own in-house LFP cells, as we talked about over the past few months, that Tesla has already bought equipment from CATL, and they've been planning a small facility at Giga Nevada to use this equipment. And just like everything Tesla does, it seems like they've been waiting to do this until they have a better new method of doing so. It now makes a bit more sense that Tesla will have full control over this facility and cover 100% of the costs. And CATL personnel will not be involved beyond helping set up the equipment. So yet another trick up Tesla's battery sleeve that will certainly take some time, but there is some hope that Tesla can have a more cost competitive cell than what's coming from China. And further, in this scenario, Tesla would not have to pay any of these margins to any other suppliers. I know all eyes are on FSD and Optimus and AI, but I think it's time for another battery day, maybe in 2026. Unfortunately, Polestar's struggles are continuing. Their CEO just said it's going to take longer for them to be profitable, and they're delaying the expansion of sales to more countries. They're now expecting positive free cash flow after investments in 2027, later than what they said before, which was the end of this year. They're also considering a reverse stock split, and they're expecting a mid-teens % decline in revenue for 2024, and of course, negative gross margin. The way I see it, Polestar is not really at risk of going out of business or going bankrupt anytime in the next few years. I think they have solid access to capital. They have been raising money over the past year or so, and Geely has said that they will continue offering financial backing for Polestar. But like effectively everybody else not named Tesla and maybe BYD, they're struggling to turn a profit making EVs. VW came out and said it's considering ways to deepen its partnership with Rivian. The CEO said, for example, we're thinking about sharing modules and bundling purchasing volumes. The VW group offers great opportunities for a small brand like Rivian. I hate to say it, but it's starting to feel like Rivian is putting the pieces in place to prepare for an eventual acquisition of Rivian if Rivian can't figure it out on its own. But for now, it's still just a partnership that does make sense. VW offers some capital and Rivian offers its tech. Rivian did also just secure up to $6.6 billion from the Loan Program Office for its upcoming factory in Georgia. Construction is set to begin in 2026 and vehicle production is expected in 2028. That will be the primary facility for the R2 and R3 lineup, but R2 production is expected first at their plant in Illinois in 2026. Tesla stock closed the day at $426.50, up 3.06%, while the Nasdaq was up 1.66%. The volume was 8% higher than the average the past 30 days. Hope you guys have a wonderful and a safe weekend. Please like the video if you did. You can find me on X, linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.